A boardroom confrontation where Carson is publicly humiliated and fired by his boss Marcus, with a shocking twist. Marcus actually takes credit for Carson's innovative project that saved the company millions. Everyone watches in silence as Carson is escorted out. My name is Carson Mitchell, and for 4 incredible years, I poured my heart and soul into Nexus Technologies. Not just another cog in some corporate machine, I was the guy who stayed until 3 a.m. debugging server issues while the cleaning crew worked around me. Software engineering wasn't just my job. It was my obsession, my identity. I could see patterns in code that others missed, solutions hidden in plain sight. That's how I survived those endless nights, fueled by nothing but cold coffee and determination. I still remember my first day at Nexus. Marcus Reynolds, all designer suits and practice charm, took me under his wing. "Kid's got something special," he'd tell everyone within earshot. For 2 years, we were inseparable. He'd swing by my desk, hand on my shoulder, asking about my latest ideas, while executives watched from the glass conference room. "Carson's going to revolutionize this place," he'd say, and I believed him. God, I believed him. Everything changed when I started developing the PULSE system. It began as a midnight epiphany, an algorithm that could optimize our cloud infrastructure and slash operating costs by nearly 40%. While my colleagues went home to their families, I'd stay behind, building this thing line by line. Marcus noticed, bringing me coffee some nights, peering over my shoulder. "This is brilliant," he'd whisper, but something in his eyes had shifted. I was too naive to notice the jealousy festering behind his encouragement. The closer Pulse came to completion, the more distant Marcus became. Small things at first. Cancelled mentoring sessions, critical remarks in meetings that left the room uncomfortably silent. Then came the midnight email demanding progress reports, followed by requests to be copied on all my communications. The day I demonstrated a successful test run that reduced server load by 35%, Marcus stormed out of the room without a word. My colleagues exchanged knowing glances. They saw what I couldn't, or refused to. One night, I found him at my desk, scrolling through my files. When confronted, his face contorted with rage. "I'm still your boss," he snarled, shoving me hard enough that I stumbled into the wall. The impact knocked a framed photo of my late father to the floor, glass shattering across the tiles. "Clean up your mess," Marcus muttered, stepping over the broken glass as he walked away. Despite everything, I completed Pulse. The system was flawless, elegant code that would save Nexus millions annually. The presentation to the board was scheduled for Friday morning. Thursday night, Marcus called me into his office. His smile didn't reach his eyes as he poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "To partnership," he said, clinking his glass against mine. Hours later, I discovered he'd locked me out of the PULSE repository. I confronted him in the parking garage at midnight, rain pouring around us as I demanded an explanation. His laughter echoed off concrete walls. "You're talented, Carson, but naive. That's why you'll always work for people like me." When I grabbed his arm, his fist connected with my jaw so fast I barely saw it coming. I tasted blood as I sprawled across the wet pavement. "Don't forget who signs your checks," he said, straightening his tie before stepping into his Tesla. The red taillights disappeared into the night, leaving me alone with the dawning realization that I'd created something powerful enough to make a good man turn against me. I should have walked away then, should have seen what was coming, but I still believed in the company, in the work we were doing. I still thought truth would prevail. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, my professional life would collapse around me, or that Marcus Reynolds was about to teach me the cruelest lesson of my career. The quarterly all-hands meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp in the main auditorium. I arrived early, my presentation ready, my bruised jaw carefully concealed with makeup borrowed from my sister. The boardroom filled quickly. Engineers, marketing teams, C-suite executives settling into their seats. Marcus stood at the podium, immaculate in his charcoal suit, flashing that million-dollar smile as he welcomed everyone. "Today marks a pivotal moment for Nexus Technologies," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed room. I sat straighter, ready for my cue to present Pulse. Instead, Marcus clicked to the next slide. My slide, my diagrams, my code architecture, only now emblazoned with his name. "Over the past 6 months, I've been developing a proprietary system called Pulse," he continued smoothly, as if the words weren't stolen directly from my lips. My blood turned to ice as he walked the board through every feature, every innovation I had created. Faces turned towards me, some confused, others pitying. My director, Sarah, looked down at her hands. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly across the floor. "That's my work," I said, my voice shaking. The room fell deadly silent. Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Carson, please sit down. We can discuss your performance issues privately." "Performance issues?" I moved toward the front, adrenaline drowning out my better judgment. "Tell them whose code you're presenting. Tell them who built PULSE." Marcus's smile tightened as he signaled security. "This is exactly what I wanted to avoid. Carson has been struggling lately, missing deadlines, becoming confrontational." He turned to the CEO. "As I mentioned in our meeting yesterday, I've tried to mentor him through this rough patch, but—" "You're lying!" The words exploded from me. I lunged for the podium, desperate to pull up the file properties that would show my authorship. 2 security guards intercepted me, gripping my arms. Marcus stepped back, a perfect mask of regret and disappointment. "Carson created a hostile work environment," Marcus continued, straightening his tie. "Yesterday, he physically assaulted me in the parking garage when confronted about his declining performance." The room collectively gasped. I struggled against the guard's grip. "That's not what happened. Check the repository history. Check the timestamps." The CEO raised his hand, silencing the room. "I've reviewed everything Marcus brought to my attention. Carson, effective immediately, your employment with Nexus Technologies is terminated." The guards tightened their hold as shock rendered me speechless. My colleagues, people I'd worked alongside for years, averted their eyes as I was dragged toward the exit. Only Sarah met my gaze, her expression torn between sympathy and fear for her own position. "Box his belongings and escort him out," Marcus instructed, already turning back to his presentation. As I was saying about Pulse's implementation timeline. The next 45 minutes remained the most humiliating of my life. Security stood over me as I emptied my desk into a cardboard box. Family photos, certifications, the stupid stress ball with the company logo that now felt like a cruel joke. Colleagues peered over cubicle walls, whispering as I passed. The executive assistant who'd brought me coffee during late nights couldn't meet my eyes. 4 years of dedication reduced to a walk of shame across the open office floor. At the glass doors, I turned for one last look. Through the conference room windows, I could see Marcus receiving congratulatory handshakes, the board members crowding around him like he was some kind of visionary. My security badge died with a final beep as I was escorted to the curb. The rain had started again, soaking through my shirt as I stood there, cardboard box disintegrating in my arms. My phone buzzed, a notification that my company accounts had been deactivated, followed by an automatically generated email detailing my non-compete agreement. By the time I reached my car, I could barely see through my tears of rage and humiliation. I had no idea then that this crushing betrayal was just the beginning, or that, in exactly 27 days, Marcus Reynolds would be calling me, his voice desperate, begging for the help of the man he'd destroyed. The weeks after my termination blurred together in a haze of rejection emails and sleepless nights. My resume, once impressive, now carried the stink of unexplained dismissal. Prospective employers would lean forward during interviews, voices dropping to that careful tone. And why exactly did you leave Nexus Technologies? No explanation sounded better than the truth, that I was fired in front of the entire company for allegedly assaulting my boss and stealing credit for his work. The irony burned like acid. My savings dwindled as rent came due. I sold my car, downgraded my apartment, and started taking freelance coding gigs that paid a fraction of my former salary. Some nights, I'd wake in cold sweats, Marcus's smug face hovering in my dreams. Other nights, I'd code until sunrise, rebuilding Pulse from memory. Not because I needed to, but because I needed to prove to myself that it was mine. 23 days after my firing, my former teammate Raj called me. He spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid of being overheard. "Pulse is failing," he said without preamble. "The system keeps crashing, corrupting data clusters. Marcus can't stabilize it." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Let me guess, he didn't understand the recursive authentication protocols. Worse, he presented your front-end architecture, but the back-end is held together with duct tape and prayers. We've lost 3 major clients already. Raj paused. There's more. The board is asking questions. Marcus told them you sabotaged the code before leaving. My hand tightened around the phone. Another accusation. Another lie. Why are you telling me this, Raji? Because it's not right. What happened to you? His voice cracked slightly. And because people are starting to talk. Sarah quit last week. So did Ling and Darius. They're all saying the same thing, that Pulse was yours. After Raj's call, something shifted inside me. The fog of depression lifted, replaced by clarity and cold determination. I spent the night creating a detailed portfolio, documenting my work on Pulse with timestamps and development logs I'd fortunately backed up to my personal cloud. By morning, I had registered Carson Mitchell Consulting, LLC. I started small, reaching out to former clients who'd always appreciated my work. Within days, I had 3 contracts. Within a week, I had hired Sarah as my first employee. By the second week, I'd secured a meeting with Vertex Systems, Nexus's biggest competitor. The Vertex CEO studied my presentation with growing interest. "This system could revolutionize our entire infrastructure," she said, tapping her pen against my design specs. "But if it's as revolutionary as you claim, why haven't we seen anything like it before?" My answer was diplomatic, professional. Everything Marcus wasn't. Sometimes innovation needs the right environment to flourish. I walked out of Vertex with a 6-figure consulting contract and something far more valuable. Vindication. That same evening, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost declined it, thinking it was another recruiter. Something made me answer. Carson Mitchell. My voice was firm, confident. The voice of a consultant, not a victim. There was a pause, then, "Carson. It's Marcus Reynolds." The sound of his voice sent a jolt through me like touching a live wire. My fingers tightened around the phone as memories of that humiliating day flashed through my mind. "I'm surprised you had the nerve to call me," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Look, I know things ended poorly between us." His tone was conciliatory, but I could hear the desperation beneath it. "But we have a situation at Nexus. The Pulse implementation isn't going as planned." "You mean your implementation of my system is failing?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Another pause. I heard him take a deep breath. "The board is threatening to shut down the entire project. We're hemorrhaging clients. I need—" He stopped, then forced the words out. "Nexus needs your expertise." The universe has a particular kind of justice, I thought, savoring the moment. 27 days ago, this man had me thrown out of the building. Now he was begging for my help. I'm willing to offer you a generous consulting fee, Marcus continued, his words coming faster. 3 times your former salary, plus a public acknowledgement of your contributions. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights. In that moment, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. Down one path lay sweet, immediate revenge, the satisfaction of telling Marcus exactly where he could shove his offer. Down the other lay something more complex, more powerful. I'll meet with you, I said finally. Tomorrow, noon, but not at Nexus. Name the place, he replied quickly. Café Laurent. It's public, it's neutral ground, and their espresso doesn't taste like corporate desperation. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding with a strange mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. For the first time since my firing, I felt completely in control. Marcus Reynolds had taken everything from me. My job, my reputation, my creation. Tomorrow, I would face the architect of my downfall, not as a disgraced former employee, but as the only person who could save him from drowning in his own lies. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I prepared. Not just for a meeting, but for the confrontation that would either define or destroy what remained of my professional life. I arrived at Café Laurent 30 minutes early, choosing a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. The espresso in front of me had gone cold, untouched, as I rehearsed what I would say. Outside, rain lashed against the windows, fitting weather for the reckoning that was about to unfold. When Marcus walked in at exactly noon, I barely recognized him. Gone was the immaculate suit and practiced confidence. His hair was disheveled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his designer shirt was wrinkled beneath his rain-soaked jacket. He scanned the cafe anxiously before spotting me. "Carson," he said, extending his hand as he approached. I looked at his outstretched hand and left it hanging. After an awkward moment, he withdrew it and slid into the seat across from me. "You look like hell," I observed coolly. He attempted a smile that came off as a grimace. "It's been a challenging few weeks. I imagine it's difficult to maintain something you don't understand," I replied, watching his expression carefully. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. Things got complicated. But right now, Nexus is losing millions every day that Pulse is unstable. The board is talking about scrapping the entire system." "Your system," I corrected. "That's what you told everyone, wasn't it?" He flinched. I made a mistake. Heat of the moment, the pressure from above. "Save it," I cut him off. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a calculated decision to steal my work and destroy my reputation." For a moment I thought he might deny it again. Instead, his shoulders sagged. "You're right," he admitted, his voice barely audible over the cafe's ambient noise. "I saw what you created, and I knew it would secure my promotion to CTO. I panicked. You assaulted me in a parking garage, then accused me of attacking you." His eyes darted around the cafe. "I can make it right. The consulting fee I mentioned, I can go higher, much higher. We can draft an NDA that acknowledges your contribution while saving face for the company." I leaned back, studying the man I had once admired. "Do you know what happened after you had security throw me out like garbage?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Carson? I couldn't get interviews. Colleagues I'd known for years wouldn't return my calls. I had to sell my car to make rent." My voice remained calm, but my hands were shaking under the table. "You didn't just take my job, Marcus. You tried to take my future." "I'm sorry," he whispered, and for a brief moment I almost believed him. I pulled a folder from my messenger bag and slid it across the table. "Open it." Inside was a copy of my contract with Vertex Systems, effective immediately, with my signature still wet on the final page. The blood drained from Marcus's face as he skimmed the document. "You're working with our biggest competitor?" "I'm heading their new optimization division," I confirmed. "And I'm not alone. Sarah's with me. So are Ling and Darius. Turns out talent follows integrity, not corner offices." Marcus's expression morphed from shock to rage. "You can't do this. Your non-compete becomes unenforceable if termination involves provable ethical violations by the employer," I finished for him. "My lawyer says stealing intellectual property and making false accusations qualifies." He slammed his fist on the table, causing nearby patrons to turn and stare. "You vindictive son of a—" "Careful," I warned quietly. "You're making a scene. Again." Marcus's breathing was ragged as he struggled to regain composure. "Name your price," he hissed. "Whatever Vertex is paying, I'll double it." I almost laughed. It was never about the money. "Then what do you want?" he demanded. "I want you to understand something," I said, leaning forward. "Being fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. You forced me to build something of my own instead of making others rich with my ideas." I stood, dropping cash on the table for my untouched coffee. "Nexus will survive without Pulse. The board will demote you, not fire you. They can't afford another scandal. You'll keep your job, your salary, your reputation. Mostly." His jaw clenched. "And you get to walk away the hero." "No," I corrected him. "I get to walk away free." As I turned to leave, Marcus grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging painfully into my skin. "You think you've won? I still have connections. I can still hurt you." Something inside me snapped. 4 years of loyalty, weeks of humiliation, all crystallized into a single moment of perfect clarity. I twisted free and seized the front of his shirt, pulling him to his feet with a strength I didn't know I possessed. "Listen carefully," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "I have nothing left to lose because you already took it all. But you?" I released him with a small push. "You still have so much to lose." The cafe had gone silent, every eye on us. Marcus stood frozen, his expression a mixture of hatred and fear. "Goodbye, Marcus," I said, straightening my jacket. "I'd wish you luck, but we both know luck isn't your problem." I walked out into the rain without looking back. For weeks after being fired, I'd imagined this confrontation differently, with shouting, maybe even violence, some dramatic gesture to balance the scales of justice. But standing there in the downpour, I felt nothing but relief. 6 months later, I watched from my new corner office as the Vertex implementation of my system increased their market share by 23%. Nexus eventually abandoned Pulse, and Marcus was quietly reassigned to a regional office in Omaha. Sometimes, karma doesn't need your help. The betrayal that was meant to end my career became its true beginning. I built a team that valued integrity as much as innovation. We created systems that changed the industry, not because we were trying to climb corporate ladders, but because we believed in what we were building. Every morning I keep a small reminder on my desk, that cardboard box I carried out of Nexus in the rain. It sits empty now, a monument to the day I thought I'd lost everything, only to discover I'd finally been set free. They say success is the best revenge. They're wrong. The best revenge is realizing you never needed vengeance in the first place, just the courage to rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. Marcus didn't just fire me that day in front of everyone. Unwittingly, he launched me. Sometimes the greatest betrayals lead us exactly where we were always meant to be.